You are okay.
Okay, good evening. This is a special meeting of the Utilities Commission of the Town of New Canaan. On Tuesday, September 26th, 2023. Okay, can we take attendance, please?
Sure. Hiram Cantu. Mike Collins,
He's on one.
via Zoom. Brenny Clark.
Here.
Sven England.
I am here by
Got Zeddy doesn't. Janae.
Janae.
Yeah. I will say it right.
It's all good.
Everything. Krista Cannon here. Spring.
Yes, no,
Here.
R, the
Yeah.
key and the letter R, right?
And Rich Townsend.
Present. Okay, we have a quorum, and so why don't we go with the next thing on the agenda, which is the minutes for our meeting of August 30th, 2023. Does anyone have any comments or changes to the minutes? I have one. Point number 5, which is drive-by test vendor selection, discussion, and possible vote. Point CI is, there was a side note here on what the procurement process was for the town of New Canaan. And it says this project is under $5,000, so it does not require a formal RFP. That is supposed to be $50,000. The formal RFP and field bids are not required unless it's over $50,000.
To accept it amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So moving on. Public comments. Do we have the list?
Yes, we have two speakers. The first will be Elliot. I will allow him to introduce himself, and if you could just let us know, your address. And we have 2 minutes for each public speaker.
Good evening, my name is Elliot Siderides.
Sorry, just for the best, can you say your name slower and slower?
Elliot Siderides, Siderides.
Thank you.
Address Woods End Road. I've been a resident here for many years. And I've got a couple comments on the agenda. The evaluation of the drive test vendor proposals. Is it my understanding, or am I reading this incorrectly, that Mr. Moynihan is here to describe the selection process, vendors considered, evaluation criteria, and vendor selection? If that is the case, my understanding from the last meeting that I watched on Zoom, I wasn't able to attend in person, was that the process, was going to be a exchange amongst the committee members, utilities committee members, to come up with the research, facts, vendors, which Mr. Moynihan challenged were not there, and that those vendors in an open discussion so the public could hear it, so that we could understand how this process is going to work in the daylight. That's what my hope is.
Okay.
And if I'm reading any of these, maybe they're grammatical errors, you know,
The
I just
intent
wanted-
is it's in the open. The intent is it's in the open.
that's great.
And the supposition I had when I wrote that was, I presume Kevin will come in with who he thinks he wants. Maybe he won't, but I presume that doesn't say it's selected. It says that that's what the town thinks they would go forward with.
Right.
It doesn't say we would recommend it, which
Right.
is the point of
So the discussion is gonna be made amongst yourselves
And you-
before a presentation is gonna be made by Mr. Moynihan.
No, I hope he makes a presentation first,
Oh,
so that we understand the proposals and we understand how what he thought of each proposal, so we got something to actually debate and evaluate.
okay, but isn't,
We should have a dialogue.
Yeah.
Thank you for the input.
my understanding was first, the discussion on the vendors, and then a recommendation to the selectmen for his.
That's a correct process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joe,
We have a second speaker. If you could just announce yourself and your address, please.
Good evening, members of the Utilities Commission. My name is Joseph Powell. I'm on Arrowhead Trail. I have a brief handout, if I may. Thank you. And I'd like to certainly echo your comments on the first speaker. And raise, I think, a very important topic that follows up on your presentation last week to the town council concerning HIPAA. And the fact that radio transmissions that are unencrypted basically violate HIPAA, challenge HIPAA. And I gave the quote that was made at the meeting in England, specifically there, and provided me with 6 references, which absolutely, positively, from law firm, from HHS, from the state of Massachusetts, say that unencrypted radio transmissions are permitted under HIPAA. And actually, one of the references goes on as far as to say, and you don't need to build a cell tower, which is what was interesting to find. And I would request that the information that was provided to the town council be updated, because it was incorrect to suggest that this is something that is inconsistent with HIPAA. Finally, at the last page of the document I gave you is some data that I think is very important that relates to 911 emergency situations. And it comes from 2 sources, Mr. Kine, who fortunately is here tonight, and Mr. Testa. And what you see are the reports that were provided in 2017 of the number of 911 calls that were made by cell phone in New Canaan. In 2021, the number of calls that were made by cell phone, and then again in 2022. They have been going down. They have been going down, and the chart shows at the same time the towers have been going up. So that's a very piece of interesting data. It's about 11% reduction over 6 years. Now, I don't know why that's true, and I haven't seen any explanation. I have a hypothesis, and I would say it's as good as any, but this one makes a lot of sense to me. I think when somebody dials 911, if they don't get through, they dial it again, or if the call is dropped in an emergency situation. So the number of calls in 2016 probably was much greater than the number of events. As cell service has been improving in the town, basically 1 call per event, 2 calls per event is probably sufficing. So the fact that you have an 11% reduction is getting rid of that higher volume and also consuming for a little bit of growth in population, a little bit of growth in use. So I think it's very important when talking about this data to keep the perspective in mind that the number is coming down. I know Mr. Hines is here. I hope that's not his satisfaction. If you have any questions, if not, I thank you for your time.
thank you. Right, for public comment.
Yes.
And there's nobody on Zoom that, anybody on Zoom want to make a public comment?
Nobody has a hand up.
Okay. So let's move on to the next piece here, which is evaluation drive test vendor proposal. Let me just make a comment on this on the way in. I think this is really an important issue. The issue of not simply the vendor that we select, but the data we get from the vendor and the settings for cellular coverage within the town, not just for the West Tower, but for the entire town. So we know where the entire problem is and how to address it. And so as we go through this, Corinne has worked very hard at trying to help us understand what's important in the data that we get and how that will be important going forward, not just for what we do this year, but what we'll be doing for the next 2 or 3 years. And it will give us a database on which we can actually operate. So I believe we're trying to choose the right vendor. We're trying to choose it that will give us with the right output. So that it will be good for a lot longer time, just a couple of maps that we can look at this year. That's the intent here, and that's why we're being a little bit slow, actually, in responding and making sure that we get the right vendors and we get the right data. Good point. And also, we really do intend to be, and I think we are being very transparent on this. We did not study this stuff before we came into the room, because our commitment to you is to study it in front of you and to argue about it. We might not understand everything, and it might not appear like we're too coordinated on it. It's because we're all doing our separate stuff and we get together, right? And you're here with us getting together. And so that's the way we're going to operate. With enough to do on that, Kevin, can you tell us where you're at and how you got there?
I sent you an email yesterday with the proposal, so I can summarize the email. Since July, August, September, we've served high and low to find firms that provide drive tests to the Northeast. Or even, so my first contact was go back to the meeting in Colorado, we did the Thunder Light Solutions 2014 drive test. He flew out here with his staff and his equipment. And he's no longer in the business. He's running a separate firm, Center Light Solutions, firm. So then I called Anthony LaPointe, president of City of State in Florida, who was our consultant for 2 years with Tom Tesla. And Anthony gave me several references, one from New Jersey, all that is Stan, interesting character, who Turnkey Wireless, Jen Tomsky, who put me in touch with Amdoc. Amdoc seemed very promising when I first talked to them. Actually, Russ was on the phone with me. We talked to Amdoc, and they turned out to be a very large software development firm. And although they do the software, they're not in the business of doing the guy. So, and then Karim sent me some information through Chris, I guess. And I looked at each one of those websites and contacted them, and they were actually much different firms. One's a global consulting firm, GL Communications, which is a really a big federal, they're engaged with Maryland for a reason. They do federal consulting, federal contracts. The others, one was a really referral firm for RF engineers. And the other, anyway, so those turned out not to be in the.
No, but the RF engineer, if I may.
Yeah, I think we should have a back and forth here.
Yes.
The RF engineer is what it's called. It's a little bit like a, Airbnb for engineers. So I can find like 20 of them that will do freelancing tech. We didn't go there because it's not a company, but all this engineer, I can get you 20 proposals tomorrow.
Well,
And then
I think everybody wants to get this done before the lease fall, and that was my mandate to try to find firms that were in the business. And
Sure. But I just to be exact, right?
Yeah.
And GL, I talked to them and they can do it. So I was supposed to talk to, I don't know, we're supposed to go and talk to you and go talk to them because I got 4 emails from them telling me that they can do it.
it would be helpful if you share what it means.
I did send it. I did send the email.
Yeah.
You want me to resend it to you with the proof that it has been sent? I don't know, I mean. I sent it to everybody.
Okay, well, we had, you forwarded about, what, 6 or 7 firms?
Yeah.
Right, in the list that came forward.
I mean, you said you sent me communication you have with them?
Yeah, I did send that to everybody.
I don't think I got that.
Okay, so.
Okay, well, we'll send it.
Well, we sent it, it's not a problem.
So then I asked AT&T, and AT&T confirmed that they use only C-squared up in Vermont, their right to use C-squared. And as you know, T-squared, like I said, they were conflicted because they were representing AT&T with the appeal of the Upper Bonus Ridge Tower, which was the legislative county last December. And then T-Mobile does their work primarily in-house, but they also use telecom solutions. So that what they recommended Cityscape, which was not Anthony was not prepared to do this.
Yeah, he didn't want to do it. I talked to him as well.
Right, VCOM and PeerCom. PeerCon, the past 2 weeks, I've been, this fellow, at PeerCon has been in business 30 years. That is one of their primary businesses. They also design internal, dot systems for buildings and stadiums and that kind of thing. So they're, and, you know, each of these is a small firm that focuses on doing business for governmental entities that want the advising and some things to some extent for the carriers. Carriers for the most part don't do dry testing. They do computer simulation, but that's accepted by the siting council. So that being the case, I think, I'm not making a recommendation. I think both firms are qualified. And VCOM on the one hand, based upon their original proposal, they've got a wide variety of public entities that they service throughout the Northeast. I don't know why VCOM, you know, they may be more larger than PeerCon. But PeerCon clearly wants the business and does the business, and there's two, you know, these are the kind of firms who do garden variety. I guess, but grad testing is not rocket science. It's not. You collect the data, you put it into a computer program, which is designed by much larger firms, right? These guys
That's right.
don't design their own and spit out a report.
I-
And
So I have I found the email, so it's dated of the September 16, and you say, Kareem, thank you for this. And I say, copy the email from driving test from the quad, and then say they're doing this test. And they're sent by Robert B. Shefke, Director of Engineering. So it's not even a sales guy. And I put also the sales guy, which was Vikram. And I put also the origin.
I communicated with them.
Sure, but I mean, you cannot say that
No, but
I didn't. Okay, you just say you never received
No,
it.
But I did
That's
communicate.
fine, that's fine. I just want to be,
I did communicate.
I want to be exact.
I had a question. I was looking at the proposals. PeerCon, I was concerned, and I don't know enough about this to know if it's a concern. They said that they don't recommend the crane because of the proximity. They can't get the exact right location, et cetera, but they could propagate the study of the data. How accurate do we think that is? I'm old school, so I guess I was picturing they were actually going to put up a crane at the right height and put the bands on it. I just don't know, do we trust that the propagation, the simulation's the same?
You know, that location has a driveway, existing driveway into the house. Right,
Mhm.
rather than bringing the crane 50 feet to 35 feet higher as the new driveway they would put in. So, you know, that's the approximate location. It's like maybe 70 feet away. I don't think that's an issue in terms of.
So they would actually raise a crane
Oh, yeah.
and do the whole thing,
Yeah, that's the
okay.
whole point.
Oh, okay. I couldn't tell from his email if he was saying that he was not recommending the crane. It sounded to me when I was reading what he
I
said.
think the question is very relevant. I mean, in general, it's difficult to know unless you spoke to the person who's going to do the test, right?
Mhm,
So saying how it's relevant or not, I would say, I don't know,
yeah.
unless the engineer described the methodology, right?
I think part of what we're trying to get at though is, and I agree that we need to know what they're gonna do and how to do it, but I think that we might be getting. I think what we need to look at is whether they're qualified to do that and and they're willing to do it the way we want them. And then we just have the conversation about how we design the test to do it. So I think.
But we're hiring them to do what they, in their proposal, so I think we have to agree ahead of time what we expect the test to look like.
Right, I think we just have to make sure that they have the capabilities to do what we want them to do, not that we have to
But-
have it ironed out with them.
I think the first thing, and I totally agree with you, mentioned that the very first thing is what we want them to do. What is the requirement? What are the problems that we're solving? And if you go to a different vendor, they in fact answering a pre-canned problem that fits what they want, not what we want.
And I think, I guess I also didn't see in the proposals that we get the raw data. The proposals I read said that we will get they will give us the graph and the chart, and I think we were asking for the raw data, and I want to make sure that they will give us the raw.
We saw a bunch of proposals, and one of the things that Kevin sent over was the Centerline proposal from 2014. And in that specific contract, it was, we own the data.
Exactly, but these, I didn't see that in
But
these.
but that was the model that we're going for here. Everybody got the proposals, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and I was just concerned because
those
these didn't
proposals-
spell that
and
out.
those proposals are public now, right?
Mhm.
They're right?
They're available for anybody who wants to request.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, so for people in the room, like, we just got them this afternoon now, but we've had them
Mhm.
dripping in.
Yeah.
But if I could characterize what I thought about the proposals, need clarification. And the clarification perhaps comes during the contract negotiations. But they kind of say, we're buying a car, you know, but then say.
It made me feel better, so I felt like it was just like, we're gonna kind of do this, we're gonna kind of do that.
And with drive-by tests and with coverage tests, nobody seems to agree on anything, right? Everybody seems to think all the maps are wrong. And I think part of the reason for that is there's probably not a real standardization in them. And I think the algorithms that get used to generate the maps, just think for a second about the way the maps are generated. They get a bunch of data points. I mean, it might be 100, it might be 1,000, it might be 10,000, depending on how they run the equipment. But then they have algorithms that connect them and overlay a topographical map or the elevations from the data that says, that allows them to move point to point and tell you where the power is at the break point where they think coverage is. But without knowing that, you don't know what the resolution is for that map.
Mhm.
Without that data.
Which I would disagree, you know, the drive test, there's 125 miles of roads in town. They drive a single road, and when you're down in the valley and you get zero signal,
Mhm.
that's measured and
Right.
it plots.
That's the point.
So that in the center line solution, center line report, as you saw, it has all the map for the plot.
Right.
Right, some places you get different degrees of reporting, other places you get zero, where there's no coverage,
Right.
no signal,
Right.
right? A propagation map, you know, these colorful, colorful circles around tower. Rich Conrad was a view, that doesn't add much more. Obviously, that's not showing you the topography, it's showing where the signals are going out.
Mhm. Doesn't show you anything.
It does, so he said that doesn't really add much to the picture.
Right.
Centerline did it, it's what the areas do with the siting council accepted, it shows where but the reality is, most important thing is, those simulations show the extent of as far as that intent, that signal can go for that tower.
Mhm.
You can't take a tower that's designed to be 2 miles maximum and make it go 3 miles.
No, you can't.
Well, you can't.
It's interpolation. It's called extra. Okay, let me
You
just make
can't,
my
so
point.
SEC regulations. right?
No. I mean, you can see the FCC regulation, you can read the text.
Yeah.
They are explaining that there's a lot of variation
Yeah.
in the precision of how the different communication company are reporting the map, right? There's a lot of issues for that, and it's why, in fact, when you compare the truth to what Verizon is showing, look there's a reference of a 7 article where basically scientific articles are quoting the fact that nobody can agree on what is the correct map. So it's scientific article, I put it here, I spent a lot of time to put at the end, you can read it. So just to go there, it's the problem, and what Rich explained very well, right? It's just an algorithm that is doing, like a regression or interpolation, extrapolation, meaning they extrapolate how the signal is going to propagate. And that's totally made up. So you're going to see a map and you can say, oh, I should receive the signal, but you don't, because they're making it up. So the fundamental thing is, if we don't have the raw data, it is true.
That doesn't make sense.
But read the
The one thing that they did.
And also, let me.
You're measuring from the roads, so if you're on that road, right, somebody's house is a long driveway away, you don't know what that person is experiencing, because he may be a different topography.
Sure,
On
agree.
that road, all you can do, you can't measure everybody's house, you're not gonna go and measure. everybody's
No,
house.
absolutely.
You're doing a drive test of the road, look, that's actual data of the signal at all the different bands,
Absolutely.
spectrums that the different carriers use, that's scientific fact, that's.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's that.
That's what we want. But there's one.
Nobody, none of us.
Yeah, but there's something that you mentioned and you were not precise about it. Is that a road is a road, sure. But at what speed are you going on this road? If you drive at 25 miles per hour or at 65, you're not going to get the same scientific measurement. Therefore, there is a requirement that I put it on the speed vehicle speed, the requirement 4.1.1, which is backed up by page 19. If you read that, I'm explaining why. It doesn't matter if you go exactly on the same road, if you have different speed, and if the person who is doing the test is going too fast, you're going to get a garbage map.
But I think what we're trying to do though is hire a firm who is going to actually design a test and do a test for us, which we will tell them the output we need, what we expect it to include, what we expect it to cover, which is the roads measured at it, and whatever points we need at whatever speed we need, and you can put all those factors in it, but we have to at some point hire a firm that
Sure.
can produce something
So
that can give us the information with a reason, and some of it understanding that they will have a data point on the road and they will have a model, as everybody, every business now uses a model to, with reasonable algorithms to extrapolate to the house spot, to the whatever that may not be, because Kevin said we're not measuring at the house. But that's how models and things work, right?
I guess my-
Generate a model.
I guess this is my concern. When, in work, when I have, as I've mentioned last meeting, I think the main point, when we want to get data, and the data is very important, we do a request for proposal with all of the precise things that we need to get.
Right.
And I am concerned when I read these proposals that I don't know what we're gonna get, and you're saying we can negotiate that. I'm a lawyer, having negotiated the time of the contract, but we don't know what we're hiring them to do. I think the most transparent thing would be to give them a request for proposal, say this is what we need, and then get back a detailed proposal with it before we spend the taxpayers' money, and we feel good that the data we're gonna get is what we want and what we need.
I think that's gonna take, frankly, too much time. I think what we need to look at is somebody who is qualified to do those things that we think we can work with.
I don't-
That can negotiate a contract to say that we do, because what we can get in the RFPs is to know their capacity, to know their capabilities, to know what they have done in the past and what they can do. And then and then you go in with that's what a contract negotiation is, with what we need and what we can do to produce it. If we have to go draft a contract up front and send that contract containing all the details to every single person, we're never going to get a proposal we can work with.
I think we will though, and I think then we would have a transparent, we'd have back what we need, and I guess I don't think this is a stage that we speed through. I understand the urgency, but this is the foundation for us making all of the decisions. Like, I just think this is, we all have said the whole time, we can't make any decisions till we have good data and we know what the map looks like, and we don't have that now, and
I
I.
don't think we're gonna get good data till we get that, until we get it, and so I
No,
don't
no.
know why, like I said.
Go ahead.
So Rich said something fundamental, and I want to echo it, right? We're not just doing this drive test coverage just to answer the question of the cell tower, right? Rich mentioned it, and I think we didn't insist enough, but it's to use as a strategic tool for the utility commission. Strategic tool is, okay, we're going to get a measurement, scientific measurement along the road, right? That means we can answer, does the first responder can actually do his job everywhere? Okay, so right now we cannot answer that. The second thing, we ask, oh, what do you think? Is it AT&T or Verizon or maybe mobile? Which one is the best? Right now is anecdote. With this study, we're going to answer exactly. Now, is also, Rich mentioned something which is even better. Let's say we don't want to use just cell tower, because cell tower is important, but Rich can come and say, look, here, as the town council will say, look, there's a area here, it cannot be reached by cell tower. And I can prove it by data. Therefore, we, as a utility commission, can advise the town council to say, look, we need another technology. Force the person to install, mini antenna on each electrical pole, because as you mentioned, there is some deep. It doesn't matter how tall you're going to put your cell tower, you're never going to reach. Now, the question is, how can you answer this question? And what Rich did not insist, but I understand what he meant, is that what this step has a way broader impact and usage. Therefore, I think I'm not making, I I don't want to waste the time of all my colleagues here. But anyway, this is so important that we need to invest the time. I spent several days writing this document. Why? Because I spoke to regions and we say, look, we can do way more important job with this data. Is it worth spending defining upfront the requirement of what we expect? 100%. I'm not a lawyer. So I'm turning to a lawyer. Is it practice that we can do?
I am a lawyer,
Okay.
practicing lawyer, and I will tell you what I don't disagree with anything you just said. All I think is that we're putting the cart before the horse, and I think what we need to identify is a company that we can work with, that we trust, that has the capabilities to do that, that is willing to work with us, that we think can produce it, and then you take that and give them that. And we build a test and a process that way, rather than trying to go through with each vendor we're looking at. That's a dense, very detailed, very specific thing, and I think it's an incredible amount of time and effort. You don't want to negotiate 6 different times,
Right.
that kind of detail.
But how do we know whoever we choose is going to do this?
I think if I can just interrupt for 1 second, I think when we if you set the requirements in a request for proposal, you can set the requirements as an output. This is what I want. I want resolution in this map such that I can find 95% of the houses will be on the map and will be accurate. They will be within a cell on the map that's got an actual data point. It won't be a projection from something else. And you can tell me how to do that. I don't necessarily know how to do that. Okay.
You have one of your board members on. They,
Oh, thank you very much. But my only point is, it should be an output, right? I mean, we should say, this is the resolution we want. I don't care about a drive-by map. What I want is, I want resolution for the places I want to see, whether it's got cell phone coverage. And I want it on the roads, and I want it on the residences, and I want it on the buildings.
And we want to know by each.
I think a lot of the residences are more than 50 feet off the road.
And they're more than 50
meters off the road.
More than 50, well, you might be right.
Yeah, it's fine.
You might be right.
Maybe not in my neighborhood.
But that's fine. It's data.
information.
That's information,
Right.
exactly.
Exactly. The more information, the better, right? I mean,
I agree with Charlie's approach and everyone's approach actually, but I think that we want clean data. We want the most accurate, clean data we can get from vendors who we feel are capable of doing it. We have to start somewhere. If we feel anything isn't lacking, we can always ask for more information. But to have to be negotiating it here up front, I would agree, it's just, we'll be in this circle forever. And there's no reason to doubt that these 2 vendors can't provide what we want. I mean,
but we don't know that. The proposals they have don't say they can.
but we can ask for more information and.
So what's the process? So what I would like is just sorry, I'm an engineer and I function with processes all the time.
Apologize.
So the process for me is like, if I repeat what you suggest, is that we get some vendors that can potentially be interesting for us, right? That's step 1. Step 2, then we talk to them and we say, look, this is what we're expecting, right? Step 3, they come back, they say, we can do that, we cannot do that, and we need to ask them why. And then we come back to the utility commission and say, look, worst case scenario, none of these 2 vendors can do that. Let's find somebody else. Is that the process?
Yes, I mean, we would engage a
That could be the
vendor.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just asking, I'm not like.
But I guess I always think that the logical thing would be just to give this to a few of them, and even if it's not this detailed, but we give a summary of this for a few.
But we
people,
are
so-
not purchasing.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'd like to say that, having read the information from Kevin on basically 2 vendors, Pure and Econ, and I was especially impressed with Purecon. And, from a sort of a biased point of view, I like Purecon because I was impressed with the work that they've done on DAS systems, and I felt that they were less tied to the tower industry, and I like them best, and I would be in favor of asking the selectmen to open negotiation on the contract with Purcon.
I liked Pearcon best too, but for the same reason, but I do think that, I guess, to me, it seems like we're doing backwards in terms of, I think we should have a discussion before we ask the first selectman, are you gonna be able to do this?
What I propose is, now that we have the document, we have Rich Conway or Sean Payne, talk to you.
Absolutely, anytime.
If you wanted to drive 25 miles an hour on every road, I'm sure you could say, I'll do that.
Yeah, and he would tell me, oh, maybe you say, oh, I'm going to
Yeah.
increase by 10.
No, you can't
10%.
drive any road at 65 miles an hour in Canaan.
Well, I will never say anything against that, despite that I have a Porsche, I will never.
He drives.
Mike,
No,
did you,
I do
did
not.
Mike want to say something before?
We have a commissioner from afar.
Yes,
On the site.
is that true?
The person?
Yeah, I think this conversation is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
I don't know if you can hear.
We can.
Okay, I think this conversation is great, but due to the timing we had and all of those other items, I believe that Karim's stuff should be put into these 2 companies or 3 companies that Kevin's come out with and see if they can put all the data together and then just execute one of these contracts. But I think that all put into these items is very important, and the holistic approach is very important. And I believe they utilized to sign these contracts or the contract.
Well, then, I mean, if we don't, do we want further discussion? I think we could start with making.
make a motion.
I would make a motion, well, the question becomes, are we gonna recommend 1, 2, or none for the Board of
We
Selectmen?
can
to
talk about that in
forward?
discussion.
I guess here's my question, I just don't know the process. So we had a board of selectmen before we go back to them and ask them if they can do this? Is that what we would
We
do?
would ask the Board of we would recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they do engage with these vendors and sort out the requirements
And so both vendors.
for both vendors or one vendor or no, you know, but
But and define the word engagement, like it's, there's no contract, is that there's a
they
discussion.
would.
They consider these contracts.
Yeah, they would move the contract, they would sign and put it, we would pay a deposit, I would imagine,
This
and.
is your.
But what happened, okay,
Not rocket science.
just let me just give an example. What happened is we go with whoever, like Beacon, and they say, oh, we cannot give you your data back. So
That's a given, the data belongs to us,
They don't say that.
no,
though.
they don't say that on what format.
that's easy. Right.
No, but let's say, I'm giving an example.
Right.
What is the recourse?
So
Well,
Kevin
look
is.
at that's a given.
No, but okay, let me give another thing.
So there's no reason for them, there's no reason for them.
Let me give another example. They didn't measure enough of the road at a speed which is reasonable, because I looked at it. What I'm asking you is, what is the recourse of us, New Canaan, when you're engaged in the contract?
I mean, most contracts are paid in installments and based on deliverables, right? So I'm sure that it could be.
Where, okay,
They come and they drive the road for 2 days.
how the deliverable are defined?
I think what we're having, the idea is going to do, right, is to give them the specifics of what we want and that, and
Yeah,
the specifics
I want
be
them,
designed in the
I
contract.
want them to comment on what you're asking for here.
Yeah.
Sure, okay,
If they can't do it with the equipment that's available.
yeah, okay, that's fine.
Because they don't do the software that produces this report.
No, absolutely, but I know the software, so they should be.
So it's kind of like, this is their business, they're professionals. They have no reason to be biased, and they have no reason to, ask the data not be right.
So in a perfect world, you have a Board of Selectmen meeting when, next Tuesday?
Yeah.
That you would like to make a recommendation that we move forward.
Well, I'd like to.
That we would,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're both qualified.
Okay.
I actually am biased for Beacon because of their client base.
Mhm.
I do agree that, Purcon has been doing designs of DAS systems, right? So, but they're, for the purpose where they're being hired for, they're both qualified.
But, and we haven't talked about price at all, but the price of Pearcon is 5 times, or 3 times the price of Beacon. Beacon's still there.
No, they came back with a revised proposal.
Yeah.
They realized that the,
Oh, maybe I was looking at the wrong one this morning. Who came back with the revised, Pearcon?
Purcon,
And
Because first of all, their equipment is in Texas right now.
Right.
They were gonna rent equipment for $6,000 rather than bring their equipment back into Texas, but they bring their equipment back into Texas at a cheaper price than they're renting it. So they realized, once they realized the scope of what they had to do and the timing, they said, we can do
The
it,
price is not an issue here.
it's comparable.
Okay.
What is the, just a ballpark?
One is 13,000, the Econ is 13,000, I think, Aircon is 14,000.
Okay,
In my, center line, 21,000,
Right.
they flew from Colorado and brought their equipment out here,
Right.
so.
So the process would be, we'd go to the first selectman and say, we would like to engage them, but don't give them money now. We're gonna have a discussion with them about whether or not they can do this before we pay them anything.
Can they do what we want to do? And I think Karim has defined what we want to do at a relatively low level.
Right.
that We get the right data, and the important thing is to generate the right data, right? And so we can define that contractually. This is what they will provide us.
Yeah, so, but this, you're saying that is the contract. That contract's not specific, so I don't want that to be the contract. The proposal's to be the
No,
contract.
the proposal won't be the contract.
Right, okay. That's what you just said.
That's the opener, which is very high level relative.
yeah, and then to be more like explicit, because I'm sorry, I just want to understand the law. Literally in the contract, we'll listed the 17 requirements, is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
yes, yeah, and that's what they're gonna.
okay, cool.
So the proposal would be the,
They'll measure it this way, they'll measure it with the software, they'll do it.
so we're not completely committing. We're just saying we're gonna go to the selectmen and say, we're gonna talk to these two people to see if they're able to do
Yeah,
the
right.
following work for
We
us.
think
Is that
these
right?
guys are skilled enough to do it. From a procurement process standpoint, professionals, you don't need multiple bids, quite frankly. They just need to be capable of doing it at a reasonable price, right? And they've got the skills. And I think most everybody at this table thinks both of these guys, with the experiences they've had, have the relevant skills and are probably capable. We don't know at the detail level whether they can do exactly what we think
Right,
we
so
want, but there'll probably be give and take in that as well.
Yeah, and that's right, and I don't have any bias for
Right.
So then I guess I think the proposal would be, we'd want to talk to both of them. We're gonna selectmen to see, because one of them may say, never mind.
No, I agree, and more
Yeah.
information is better, I mean, I would recommend that as a commission, we recommend to the Board of Selectmen to engage and move forward with both.
Or a thought on this, make a motion.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, moving us from discussion to motions, I would like to make a motion that we recommend to the Board of Selectmen to move forward and engage with both VCOM and PureCom.
To see if they're capable of
To see if they're capable, and if so,
Mhm.
proceed.
How does the proceeding work though? So we find out they're capable, Kareem sends us an email saying, hey, they can do it, then what happens?
Then,
Kevin, are you comfortable with Kareem?
Again,
Talking?
you know, I don't know what's in here. We just got a few hours.
There's a nice picture
The whole
of
point is,
New Canaan.
you can't ask them to customize something beyond what they're
We
capable of.
understand that.
No, we understand that.
Right. So.
Say, take it, or they can tell us
But
what.
based upon my experience with the center line, based upon my knowledge and talking to these guys, what this stuff is, this is not rocket science. They drive a machine,
Right.
it measures, it plots every road. That's the primary data you're looking for. You want them to do the simulation, the pretty pictures. They consider that doesn't really enhance anything because you actually have the actual data on the roads. And the other simulation is just pictures of, you know, how,
Mhm.
and it's not as accurate because it's going over, you know, it goes over ballot, it doesn't take it, we'll really get it.
Pictures are good for public overview.
Yeah. But the important is the extent of them. Again, you know, you may say that the FTC regulations require that they, you know, they send these signals only so far based upon what the rules are. So, you know, Northwest Tower, which will be simulated, will not reach down to West School. It simply can't.
How many miles is it allowed to go?
Cells historically about 1.5 miles, 2 miles.
Are those two?
And that's why when they, you know, the way cells work, when they realize they got too much demand on a tower, they want to build another one. Because they gotta spread that load on the different towers. That's why you have not reliable and consistent service, because there's too many devices calling on these towers. They have a certain capacity.
And it's why in the document you're going to see, I put a requirement of doing it during business hours. where the load is in general heavier than if you go at night.
They only.
Yeah, but not necessarily. Joe, could you restate the motion for me as you got it?
I've got Chris, motion that we recommend to the Board of Selectmen to engage both BCOM and PeerCom, sorry,
Solution
PeerCom Solutions. That's
Second.
to conduct a drive.
And proceed with the test.
No, I don't think we are at the state of the test yet, right? We're just gonna discuss them, because we still gotta engage the contract.
I think we would proceed
Yeah,
unless.
unless there's.
So we have
if
to-
They can't, you know, if there's an issue, then.
But how will we
Kevin can
find that
come back to us, But otherwise, he will recommend it to the board.
Well, then who's gonna draft the contract? With the
We don't do
specific,
that.
That's what we do.
Town hall.
right, and you all review and make sure all the stuff's
Yeah,
in.
because that's not what the terms and conditions.
Yes, don't worry.
Oh my God,
We normally have,
What do you have to it?
we normally have the town attorney review contracts. In this case, I propose we just use center-like contract is actually, that was used in 2014.
Okay, motion's been.
Okay, so I
Motion's
make
made.
a motion,
Seconded, so
Ben
it's open for
seconded.
discussion.
it's open for discussion.
I guess one question. Kareem, do you have enough time to do this?
Yeah, it's very, so
It's
again,
volunteer.
yeah, again, Rich, like, I think you should say it more loudly. This study is not just for the cell tower.
Right,
This study is for our community to answer questions that are safety, like convenience, and a ton of this question. Because we cannot have somebody that is doing first responder and is very scared of not being able to do his job.
Yeah.
The only way to answer this question, and I'm open to be challenged, is show the data.
Mhm.
We need to have an approach which is scientific and data-based.
Mhm.
right.
I would like to say, I think we should add to this that they should consider Boost, because we have Boost in town too, which they've only been talking about the 3 providers in these contracts, so Boost has 2 antennas in downtown, I understand, so that might be relevant too.
Well, there's
Another-
a bunch of antennas around, right?
Mhm. Not if other people
There's
do.
5G
We should name it.
It's also and stuff.
They have no idea.
Mhm.
Well, they're antennas,
Verizon
Antennas.
has 6 or 7 or 8
right,
small cells.
Yeah.
They've done instead of, to supplement their capacity down there.
right.
When it's in my data software.
But relative to this drive-by, they will be picked up,
Mhm.
Yeah,
right?
they should.
Their signal will be picked up by
The
the.
signal they pick up, you know, is gonna be the signal they get, where it's coming from.
No, it's not.
But would they be able to say which one is
Yeah.
which? They will say it's Verizon signal, AT&T.
It's all part of the same.
AT&T.
It's the band.
Each area is different frequencies. so they-
Okay.
Yeah, so, but it's gonna pick up your boost, it's gonna pick up all of these. if they're
So you'll know
part of-
which one's
No, no, no,
where.
I'm sorry, we asked them to do the 3 major carriers.
No, if it's part of the 3 major
Yeah,
carriers.
3 major carriers. Right.
So do we have other ones that are not part of the major 3 that we should be aware of?
DirecTV is in town.
DirecTV,
Sure, these are not so clear.
No, it's not.
Business.
but Boost is not one?
No, this is a 3 carrier study here by side of language.
Right,
They have 97% of the business.
right.
But do we want to check out? I mean, why not add the other one to it too?
Because it's irrelevant, it's minuscule issue, I don't, when you say boost, I mean, Dish is coming along as a new carrier. And, but. You know, they have no,
Probably here too.
they have no percentage of the market yet, so.
And they don't deal with towers.
But they have signal, I don't know if it's. Okay,
I'm not too worried about downtown.
okay, all right.
No, Dish is going on towers, this is going on, they want to be on.
I know there.
Yeah,
Mhm. So then why would we not include it? I'm just wondering.
because
They're not on any of the towers.
they're not currently in town with any kind of presence.
And if there's a signal, there are signals.
If there's a signal, it should be identified. That's why I put in the requirement,
Mhm.
please identify.
Each of them, so if it's some random signal, at least.
Random signal, we should see
Okay,
it.
all right, just-
If there's hacking or pirating of.
Because if you have a different signal from another carrier, you could pick up that too, so.
Okay, more discussion here. Kevin, does this give you enough direction on what you think you should do?
Yes.
Because I think we, all of us believe both of these companies are fine companies. There's not a company problem, and there's not a skill problem. It's really a problem of defining what our objectives are and making sure we're on the same page. Right? Okay, any more discussion? Want to have a vote?
Yes.
Let's have a vote. All those in favor of the resolution? Unanimous?
Mike,
Aye.
you might approve. You know,
Okay, unanimous, okay.
And one, yeah, so.
One member, right, okay. So we've now done the evaluation, we've done the vote, and we came up with one of the answers that we said we come up with. Okay, and we've also done, Kareem has been center stage here on the skills and everything else.
I know, wanted, we have been letting Kareem run with the technical piece of this, and I just wanted to, for the public, let them understand a little bit why, we are relying so heavily on Kareem's expertise. He has a long-standing career in this area. And he has started years ago as an aerospace engineer, actually, at a company called
Thales, that's right, it's a mathematician that is computing proportionality, a Greek one, so that's the name of the mathematician.
Right.
But how would you characterize Thales? I would say it's a Boeing of Europe.
Yes, we own, actually, Thales own Raytheon. So it's so big, yeah. Thales is so big in Europe that it's a multinational that owns Raytheon. So I work with Raytheon on a contract with the MIT lab.
And then after that, he went on to be head of research and financial modeling at Gifford Fong Associates in California.
That's right.
And then after that, he spent some time at BlackRock as the director of risk and quantitative analysis and research. Then became the managing director at Morgan Stanley. And one of the most noteworthy things was co-founded a company called AIM Squared, which was sold in 2021, but creates innovative artificial intelligence-based financial technology software products. So he has spent extensive time in his career with modeling and data, and that is why we feel so confident in his recommendations for the data that we want to capture in this study. So
And
I just wanted to-
yeah, maybe just like to be totally transparent, I have also, in terms of training, I have 6 masters. So math, computer science, aerospace engineering, AI, finance, so you name it.
And from schools like Berkeley and.
That's right.
And European equivalents.
That's right.
So we just wanted the public to know why we were relying so much on this one thing.
And why we're grateful he spent all his time putting together this huge.
Yes, we have full confidence faith in the recommendations, so I just wanted to make note of that.
Exactly. Okay, well, I think we made good progress. And Kareem, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know I was on the phone the other end of the day.
Thank you for all of this.
But again, just to, I want to, for the public to know that this is bigger and it's going to be useful for the town, right?
Yeah.
So the scope is, despite that it had grown beyond our initial expectation. I think it's very important that my fellow colleagues are spending a lot of time on it. And so I think I appreciate the commitment.
Good, thank you so much.
Okay, so let's move on. Let's move on to the survey.
We'll move on to,
Number 6,
Yeah,
citizen
number-
communication survey discussion.
yes, so, as one of the additional projects that we want to see from her relating to communications, or otherwise, we would like to have thoughts and recommendations on engaging with a consumer survey. The last one that was done, I believe was in 2012. We've all seen that, and that's on the town website for anyone who would like to see it. And, we may not solve it now in the room, but I just want to pose to the commission and also to the public to give us feedback on what they would like to see the consumer survey cover, areas of interest that we can also incorporate into the questions ultimately. Some of those areas obviously would be current level of satisfaction with our two-way communication service for town residents, emergency responders, and our town government. Another area of focus would be the current level of satisfaction with citizens' current cell service at their homes, in town, and throughout town. And I think that throughout town speaks to what I call the seamless factor. Like you were saying, even these studies will capture a data point at your mailbox. From personal experience, our calls drop between the driveway and the mailbox, so, you know, nothing is perfect, but all data and information that is accurate and clean is good, and we want it. So I think that, you know, we need to get down to that level when we're asking about satisfaction in general, and you brought up a great point too about capacity and, you know, use during the day will obviously be very different than 3 o'clock in the morning or so out. And then, you know, as we always mention things, you know, DOS and satellite and all these, you know, wonderful technologies that may be coming our way, I think that we, you know, should talk a little bit about what I'm calling the citizens' technology threshold tolerance. And do they want DOS? Do they want satellite? Do we even know what that means really? Because, you know, I don't know that we will know at this point. And that could be something else we do at some point. Bring in a DOS person, bring in a satellite person to just talk to us about the current state of affairs and how accessible that technology will be to us in the next 12 months, 24 months, 2 years. And then also, of course, really another area would be citizens, what I'm calling financial tolerance thresholds for varying technologies. Because, for example, when we talk about, you know, the Wellesley, Massachusetts town is often a reference for a DOS system, and I think, Kevin, what did you say that Wellesley?
They own the electric company, they own their poles.
And what did they spend on that? 20 million?
No, I'm not sure what the number was, but they have like 30 nodes,
Okay,
and they built their own system, they own.
I don't know, all of estimates were somewhere between 39 and 59 million, 2015 dollars.
for that
I'm not
system.
sure, I thought,
Yeah.
the number I remember from P and Z meeting was $13 million. But again, the problem is, everybody who approaches it says, we're not gonna solve something that doesn't work, because it doesn't go through leaves. You know, the small towns don't go through leaves out in your neighborhoods,
Yeah,
so.
okay. But to that point, there are many technologies we reference, and there are obviously associated costs with that. So as we all learn about that, perhaps those are areas we can include, but this is just a very topical starting point.
Maybe also talking about energy, like bearing line or solar or
Yeah, but this is focused on
Well, this is
communication.
communication. Okay.
Yeah,
We will
do
get
that.
there,
We will
don't worry.
get
All right, all right.
But it's certainly time for a refresh, because we haven't done that since.
And
2012.
also maybe explaining to the public that, you know, when you go transition for 4G to 5G, what's happening is that because you're loading up more information, the signal get less powerful. Meaning if, for instance, if I was creating a 6G, it would not go through your body, or most likely there will be some technical challenge. So for 4G, you get way better reception than a 5G.
Right.
So I think what would be good is having also some comment by scientists on what's the future, because all the decisions that we're making have an horizon, right? By the time the tower, I don't know, your first cell tower was installed like what, like 20 years ago, or I don't know. When was the first cell tower installed in?
Well, the water tower was done in 1998,
Right.
but they were in steeples churches, you know, congregational church. We have one in the Chippewa Town Hall, and then we're just doing social calls.
So I think what I'm just saying, it's good also to have a vision of the future technology, and people can give that.
Yeah, I was
And I
gonna-
think
I
that's,
think it needs to get very short. Under 10 questions, because otherwise you have no completion rate.
And I also think you need to be very specific about what you're asking, because when people are just reading it, the fact that you're asking what your cell service or your Wi-Fi service isn't gonna necessarily, you know, people aren't gonna differentiate necessarily in there, so it has to be very specific that we mean what your cell service like, not
Right.
just your, you know, Wi-Fi.
Are you waiting?
So, you know, they're, people.
Yes. and I think that,
Are you dialing into the Zoom?
in preparation, just, you know, we're kind of in a gathering, phase right now. I have reached out to P&P to see who they have with this POCD, and I have information on that I'm going to explore. And then I also reached out to the Board of Ed, because they recently did 2 consumer surveys based on the later school start time. So I think we have you know, arsenal, let's say, a stable of vendors that we can feel good about, and then see who be willing to engage with them.
And the town has been working with someone called Great.
Yes, we are.
Right, Great Blue.
Yes.
And they've put together the questions and there's a contract that we've been dealing with them as well. So there's another resource that I need to consider for doing the questions that have been put together and are the question.
So I guess the question would be, would we be coming up with the questions and the board of selectmen would be
No,
to review the vendors, or we would just
you do it.
do everything?
I don't,
All right, yeah.
I will say,
It's good to know that there's at least, you know, there's a handful of vendors that have already been done with this, right? And we work with.
Our goals is to come up with a strategy for the utilities, including two-way communications, right? I mean, what do we look like in 5 years? And we probably can't figure that out. But we ought to at least be on a trajectory that makes sense. When decisions come up, does it fit into that architecture, or is it typical architectural or whatever? But that's the point. And I think we want to make sure that our residents are the ones that are helping define the strategy, right? And what are they looking for? And if it means that they don't want towers, and we want the wait for space or something to come, that could be a strategy.
yeah, and I think I think the questions are very important. I think you're right. I think those are kind of questions. I mean, there's a trade-off, right? Between tower neighborhoods versus
Right.
not have a great cell service. What is the trade-off to our town thing? Like, where do they fall on that?
Part of the problem with this is every question, you really need a very good base of knowledge of what's coming in order to answer that question, logically.
Mhm.
So I have two thoughts on that. First, I don't know if it's in the right section to talk about, one of the things I would like to do is get somebody to come and talk to us who is either like an analyst or somebody just in the whole, that covers the sector, who's versed in all of the technology, where it is, where the money, where the investment's going, and so that we can get a wholesome picture of everything and where the industry thinks it's going. So I'm happy to actually reach out. to
I've
see-
actually got someone I can find for help. Anyway,
Okay, yeah, and I'm happy to reach out to some of my clients
Yeah.
to try to find out.
Yeah, sure, there's a lot of analysts in JP Morgan Chase.
Yeah, no,
We got lots of connections.
But I think.
No, I mean, I
Yeah,
really
yeah,
feel like
great.
Carmel or somebody like that.
Yeah, but the idea is really great.
And I guess I would like to add to that, we did have Homeland Towers come in, their tower people.
Yeah,
I
right.
think we should give equal time to a DOS expert and other things, just to hear their feel.
That's
about
what I was
it.
thinking of an analyst, because this
Yeah,
is
the analyst
something
would
we'll
do all-
know who's gonna cover the stuff.
But then we could figure out there's some we should dive into a little more.
Yes, just to give us information, it's not gonna be something that puts one or the other.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic, even as soon as next month.
Yeah.
Or just want a different one, come and talk for a few minutes, you know, each.
Yeah, yeah. You want to introduce them,
That's
Kevin?
fine.
Ready, can you hear us now?
I can. Good evening. Sorry about that. I guess I was in the wrong links. It's my apologies.
I hope it was interesting.
So Brady worked on our community survey 3 or 4 years ago. And we talked to him back in May, June, about doing this survey. Since normally the way they work is they work with the client to develop questions and they, as Sven said, if you want to listen to them, so you don't tax people's patience. But since we know the town, we really do. And we work with our interns and a group of people to suggest questions. I guess we use that as a launching point for you guys to, see what, if you would answer the question, ask the question differently. But they have technology, they used to do telephone surveys, but they found the email surveys now are sufficient and more than adequate, as long as you get a good response. And be representative. So Brady, do you want to say anything about, we really wanted to perhaps use you more for your advice on how to ask questions and not actually write the questions. And secondly, your technology of preparing the reports, and the analysis of the results, is what we were looking to do.
Yeah. So appreciate that, Kevin, and happy to answer as many questions as you all have. I think, as Kevin mentioned, oftentimes we're brought in and we develop the survey instrument from scratch, but in this case, it was a little more collaborative just on the front end. And Kevin and the interns and his team were developed a lot of those questions, and we're happy to keep consulting on those and give feedback and such. But I think really our value for this particular initiative would be in getting the survey programmed, helping you with the distribution, collecting all the data, and then really the benefits on the back end with compiling it, analyzing it, most likely comparing it where necessary to the past data if needed. I know we've taken a look at that report. It was relatively basic and short, but where needed, we would compare that, and then we would provide a written report to you and present the findings. So I think ultimately that's in this scenario, that's where the real benefit would be in the analysis and the back end reporting that we'd provide.
So Brady, I'm just gonna, you probably don't have this in front of you, but what we said is townwide survey to assess, 1, current levels of satisfaction, 2, communication for town residents, emergency responders, town government. 2, current satisfaction with citizens, current cell service in homes in town and throughout town. 3, citizens technology tolerance thresholds. 4, citizens financial tolerance thresholds for varying technology. So that's sort of what Chris is aiming for, just as a background for you tonight.
Sorry, I heard the beginning of that, and I did read over the information. So I think you went over the 4 key objectives, but I just didn't hear the last part of what you said.
Yeah,
Just for areas of interest, also anybody who's watching.
yeah, if you read number 6, you saw it.
Okay. So is this I can't imagine we're the first people to ask these questions.
But actually, they don't have a lot of history of doing cell service. They've done a lot of broadband surveys, but they haven't done.
What was that, right?
Yeah.
Can I ask you
Well,
one?
maybe that's a question. If we're going out once, do we want to go out twice, or do we want to do,
Yes.
4 questions on cell and 4 on broadband?
Yes.
We don't have a problem with broadband. People have choices. They have choices.
People do complain a lot about broadband.
Blame on the companies, but yeah.
Yeah, but
It's a different, it's a very free market, you can go do what you want, and everybody
Yeah.
gets it delivered, right?
Yeah.
At this point.
I'm just wondering if there's other information that we're on there.
I think you could bundle everything together, but I think the longer the survey is, I think it's almost logarithmic.
Yeah.
The number of people who respond.
I think you're right.
But then I think the expectation is not that you're informing this future strategy. I mean,
No,
if it's so
it's trying to get a
topical, it's
snapshot.
more about just satisfaction,
Yeah.
right? Because we have to drill down a little more
Yeah,
if you
Isn't it-
wanted them to help
I was gonna say-
establish priorities.
I don't think we can, really short would just be like, is this a priority for you? We're not gonna get to know, but I think if we wanna get into the analysis, it'd be more questions and be a longer survey, like the school short time survey was fairly long, right? Because they were looking at different scenarios and different things
But
and.
then you get, the problem is school start times,
Yeah.
everybody who's vested in that is answering.
Yeah,
Here, you're gonna.
I'm not sure we need, you know what I'm saying, but I think she's right, this is gonna be fairly superficial, like, are you okay with your self-service is all we're gonna get out of it.
Should be spending more time on it.
Well, to that point, maybe what we do is, because the P O C D, I spoke to a few people in planning and zoning and said that there, I believe, communication is one of the elements that
Yes.
they're covering in their 20-minute survey, okay? And they are going to have a public forum at the end of October, and I don't know the date off the top of my head. But after that occurs and, we learn
Mhm.
what they've discovered, maybe that will help inform.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I answered those questions and it was, are you happy with your self-service is one of the questions they're asking.
Just one question. So there's a phenomenon of what I call moral hazard, meaning who is going to go after this survey if the people are in general upset. So 1, have you seen this phenomenon? 2, if I'm really upset, I might send you 100 of my response.
They
What?
can figure out, well,
How?
they.
That's why I'm asking the
Yeah,
question.
how they do
That's a
it.
question that I'm asking.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Yeah,
get the
so-
most people.
Yeah, those are so a great question and 2 points to that. First, on the people responding who are highly unhappy or happy. So for a very long time, that was one of the primary, drivers as transitions happened from telephone to digital to stick with some portion of telephone surveys, because we found that people that responded to digital surveys were either highly happy or highly unhappy. So you didn't get a true representation and it wasn't a full bell curve. We've tracked it and we've looked at the data, over the past 4 or 5 years, and really in the past 2 or 3 years, we've really seen a great improvement, and we haven't found it necessary or the need to do telephone surveys in most instances anymore. We're finding that you are getting a really good bell curve. You're always going to get people super happy, super unhappy, but now we're seeing a much better representation when we do surveys digitally, demographically. So they're representing customer bases, or in your instance, your population base, and we're seeing a much better variety of opinions. And then to the piece on taking the survey 100 times, it's very simple. We can put IP restrictions on the survey. So an IP address can only take it 1 time. Now, if someone really was motivated, they could go on their laptop, they could go to their office, they could go to the town hall, they could go to a library, but that's why there's margin for error. And that's, very, especially for this topic, I think it would be rare. So we wouldn't need to worry about that.
They could use the VPN, but I will not take the challenge, but I could do it if you really want me to.
Do they work better because people have gotten more mature in their use of online stuff, or is it because of the way you guys deal with it?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think everybody's just become so accustomed, fortunately or unfortunately, to doing everything digitally. The surveys are also mobile optimized, so it makes it much easier. Gives us a much more diverse way of communicating it, and gives people a little more free reign to take it when they want, as well. And also we found, especially we work with a lot of utility companies, municipally and publicly and privately owned all over the country. And we did a lot of comparisons in terms of the satisfaction ratings. That's a primary benchmark to look at. And really the drop in satisfaction was only anywhere 5 to 6%. So, there wasn't a huge difference, where sometimes when we do look actually at the phone now, you find more that we're getting more honest answers digitally because people are a little more open and honest. We're on the phone. It's almost like, especially in a political climate like we're in now, it's almost like a lot of people will say what they think the person on the other end wants to hear. Where digitally, when it's totally anonymous, you're getting, we're finding that the feedback sometimes a little more broad or a little bit deeper, especially in open-ended questions, but it appears and is coming across more honest.
Is it an anonymous survey?
Yeah, we can do it either way. Typically 95% of the surveys we do are anonymous. If there's a reason to, there's a couple ways we can tie it back to somebody if there's a reason to. If you had someone's email address, we could, on our end, we would be able to see it, which emails clicked it or didn't. Obviously, typically we wouldn't share that with the client unless there was a reason to, and then or we can ask the respondent to provide their, name, address, contact information if there was a reason for follow-up contact, or if you needed that information.
Well, you just want, if you want that information,
That's just say for plotting purposes and.
For plotting.
and figure out what neighborhoods are happy and not happy with their cell service.
I also think there's ways that you can, especially with something like this, where we can either, make it an open-ended question to put your street name in, or if you break the town out by different regions or different landmarks, there's ways to collect, demographic information that doesn't make the person feel like, oh, they're asking me for my name and phone number and social security number. They're going to know everything about me. Street, typically a number of people on a street. So,
And what is your expectation in terms of response level, like 20%, 99, 10?
7, I think P O Z D is getting 7%.
7%.
Really, that's all?
Yeah.
20 minutes?
It's a pretty,
Oh,
it's a
20
pretty,
minutes,
it's a pretty
okay.
long survey.
It's a really long survey.
But see, then that's a question too about, how you define rules, because, for example, if you only let people take the survey that are on the emergency system, you would be guaranteed they're in New Canaan. Like, how can we be guaranteed that the people that respond are truly New Canaan residents?
But we also ask people who work with them, not just residents.
Right, but are tied in.
So why why are we doing that? I think we should just do residents.
There it is.
Hold on, I thought you were charging.
No, that's it's a.
Oh,
Oh, but I think for ours, we want residents, right? It's where,
No, right, he's saying from POC.
Yeah, so we could-
But my point being, like, what if there's people who live here, don't live here anymore? Or, like you said, like sending a survey to 30 other friends, like, hey, say you hate whatever, you know, I mean, it's.
I think we just have to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, it's.
oh, yeah, so I guess,
It's
you know,
a
that,
directional.
I don't ever see
Correct,
that
yeah,
helpful if
that's
it's
all.
7% acceptance. I mean, it's gonna be very superficial, are you happy or you're not, and it's only 7% acceptance rate. I'm just
Right, I
wondering
don't
if it's have a lot of value that this is gonna give us.
4 6th graders.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really a little concerned
I
that,
can't get in my better.
do we think it's worth doing?
We have to think about this.
Brady, what kind of reply do you get from these surveys?
Sorry, what was the question, Kevin?
Reply you get for the community surveys. Generally.
Percent.
Two things. First, on the location, similar to IPs, addresses, we are able to look at the data where it comes from geographically. So, you know, there very well may, you know, someone might be on vacation in Florida and get the survey and take it, you know, we would see that potentially would take them out. But if for some reason we saw that there was like 42 responses from Chicago, maybe there's a big family of 42 that's out there taking it, or there's a big trip from town, but most likely that's not the case and we would take them out of the survey. So that's a way to get around that. And then percentage base, so it's really more, so it's you know, based on the typical population size of a lot of towns, really when you get over 10, 15, 20,000 residents, the goal for us is not percentage based, it's more so wanting to hit a certain margin for error. So our goal would be to most likely get a minimum of 400 completed surveys. That's going to give you a margin of error of less than 5%. So if you double that, just for instance, it is obviously better to get more data, 800 to 1,000 surveys. But if you went from 400 to 800, you'd go from 4% margin of error to about 3.4% margin for error. So your data really doesn't change very much. If we typically, what we see on a response rate percentage wise, if the list is provided by a town or a, you know, a company, and there's really good communication up front, letting the customers, residents know that it's happening, coming.
Back up,
What was that?
You froze.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we've seen if you have a really good, if you have an email list or a digital, you know, way to distribute an email, sometimes we'll see anywhere from 3 to 5% response rate.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks, Brady.
yeah, thank you very much for joining us. Very, very helpful.
Thank you.
No problem. If you have any questions, feel free to call me. Kevin has my number. Shoot me an email. Happy to help.
Terrific,
Thanks.
terrific.
Thanks so much. Thanks for your patience. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
This is another topic everybody's doing, you know, everybody should be on. Right?
But it is a low response rate. He's saying 3 to 5.
Yeah, very low.
I mean, I just
But
don't
he
want,
makes the case that he can say this is statistically significant.
I have trouble thinking it's gonna get a lot out of this. I would like to have the information. I'm just wondering. What do you think? Steph?
But according to him, and I'll leave this to you, Corinne, I mean, I was surprised that 400 is not statistically different than, you know. The margin there is
No,
not
I mean-
that little bit in a town like, in this kind of a survey, that seems odd to me.
Yes, I think you're right, but again, it's like I would need to know what his methodology is using.
Yeah.
And the question that I should have asked is that, do they allow to access the raw data? But don't worry, I will ask you to work with that.
You will ask us.
Now you know, right?
And do we all.
The location and, the
Yeah, and the elevation. When we click on the mouse.
Yeah.
Are they doing it while?
Okay, I think that's a, are you done with that one?
Kevin had that great.
Okay, just one other thing, and that's, do any of the commissioners have anything they want to bring up that we should be looking at in the shorter term? You want this in your evaluate.
I did
You
not,
want to be in your
that was one thing I wanted to raise.
An analyst,
Bring it
I
in.
think.
Yeah.
And I think also, when we put some statement with the DAS or any of the technology, I think it would be good also to have a refresher of the cost. Because cost evolves very fast, right?
Yeah.
They have a lot of pressure
Yeah.
to. So I think for me, it would be just like a basic, survey of what you're saying, the analyst should be able to do that. So I think to the analyst, we should ask him like, how the costs are evolving over 10 years.
Yeah, I think you should have it in a regular meeting. Okay, and I think we should see if we can get some advertising on it and pull people in, who are interested, in the town meeting room, to hear the presentation from the analysts.
That would be great.
Yeah, why not advertise it?
Yeah.
You talk about Wall Street equity analyst.
Yeah.
There's something.
Yeah.
I think that's really important that everyone knows that we're looking at it, right?
Somebody that's
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
at it from,
yeah.
you know,
And I,
holistically.
and I know I got an email saying I can't, but do you think we need to?
We talked to you about it, but we've scheduled for November 21st.
Right before
For the
Thanksgiving.
Aquarian Water Company to come in and just say what their plans are for town, where they're putting new pipe, how they're working with the town, just kind of an update. And so that's on the agenda. Yeah. And Kevin had mentioned, or no, Rich had mentioned to me, as long as we're doing with them, shouldn't we?
Yeah, Tiger mentioned it to me.
Norwalk.
Right.
And I mentioned that to Kevin the other night. And it's a very small Norwalk, water.
They may have 200 customers down Valley Road over.
One of them's my daughter.
Well, let's get it on the agenda.
But again, we can't as an afterthought.
Yeah, but they do on the reservoir in the middle of New King.
I know that they,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, but if we drag them in, if they come in and talk, then I like it's better. I shouldn't say drag, if they have to come in, maybe they answer better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I reached out to Tiger to try to help him, or maybe Kevin, who I should reach out to at the Norwalk Water. And just offer them the same thing. Would we do it the same night as Aquarian?
You're looking for the reservoir, the King Reservoir, the out Norwalk Electric and Water, which is a very large reservoir off the
No, but they don't supply water.
They don't supply water, it's a facility within our town, it's very rare. But Tiger was very enthusiastic about the quote new director, which is maybe new for years, right? That apparently has a very different attitude than the old director.
Apparently, but the water is the same.
Okay, anybody else?
In terms of the topic of communication, what we talked about, Rich, is like maybe listing the type of usage of the data and that will really benefit once we have this information, meaning do we want to publish it on the website? Do we want to answer the question, our roads are all covered properly? Do we want to answer the question, does a first responder has any visibility of dark area and where? And so I think it would be good to show to the public that we will leverage this work.
I think that's a good idea. Once we know what we can actually do.
Of course.
Right? But as you look through Kareem's book, it's interesting, the map he put together, which has a whole lot of little dots on it, and now it's got some blue squares on it where the parks are. But that's every residence in New Canaan. It's each of those dots.
Yes, that's right.
So we can figure this out.
The people, it's even like, I have the density of how many people are at a certain house.
I did have one quick question. We have a meeting scheduled for the Tuesday before Thanksgiving on Thursday. Is everyone gonna be able to make that holiday week? Yeah, November 21st.
The 21st, should we try and reschedule that? What's
I don't know.
the
I've got,
consensus?
I think you have relatives and guests. I don't know if it's Thanksgiving holiday.
Will you be here?
I'll be here.
Yeah, if it's,
No.
It's a good thing you bring up, but why don't-
Hey, Rick,
Yeah, yes, Mike.
just a quick footnote for on the electric gas utilities. I'll be meeting with some of those folks to try to get a heat map, basically showing where the most outages happen in town. As well as, where improved, as well as an update on the 2-year upgrade on the current underground, electric systems in town. And then maybe a sidebar on the natural gas updates as well.
oh, that's
Oh,
fine.
that sounds really good.
That's great. Talk to Mr. Berg. He's busy having interviews on South Avenue with the residents.
Who is?
Yeah, I heard, I saw that.
Yeah, rolled up, we'll make it an agenda item.
Yeah, it will. We'll get there. It'll be an agenda eventually. It might be in the year 2030, but it will be an agenda.
Okay, anything else? There might be more thinking about that. I agree with your point about the
I
21st.
just think this is the holiday
No, I
weekend.
agree. Everybody, I'll tell you what, send me a vote on what you think should be rescheduled. We could reschedule the prior week or the supplemental,
Yeah.
and get it out of a vacation period where a lot of people will.
Be traveling, I was saying that Tuesday's a big travel day for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, makes sense.
I don't know if it's better than the next, then you get into December.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
It would be.
yeah, shall we try to do it then?
Yeah, yeah, we'll see if we can, we'll see if we can do
I don't know.
Do we-
Mess up other people, I was just looking at this.
I like this room too, it's because.
Yeah, the 14th of November.
Can you guys say something
No, I-
about Alex?
I know, I was just trying to figure out when we would get that on the calendar, but it might be December, thinking, I don't know. Find somebody, yeah.
Whatever they're.
Yeah, available.
I'll make a motion to move the November meeting to the 14th.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll figure out whether we can do it or not.
Okay, yeah.
Assuming it's available.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a great idea.
Thank you.
motion.
Yeah.
Take note of that motion.
Everybody make a motion to adjourn.
I will.
There we go, we got one.
I motion to adjourn.
Thank you, everybody.
Seconded mine.
I don't know that someone seconded it.